Very nice. Very nice. All right. Welcome to Kerbal Space Program with Mr. Fudge. We are going to begin with how to build a basic rocket from scratch. So let's go ahead and grab the MK1 command pad. Within the scope of these sort of little video series, we're only going to work with one Kerbal. And then below that, we're going to get in the habit of grabbing something called a heat shield. So we're going to place that here. It's not really apparent why that's important maybe right away, but the atmosphere contains ozone. When you're moving really fast and you need to come back from space through the ozone layer, sometimes you're going really fast and you'll burn up in that ozone layer just like meteorites. So having a little heat shield here is really important. And it gives you a little more room to make mistakes without exploding. So we're going to put a heat shield here. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to utility and get a parachute. Put that right on top. That's a pretty good little parachute capsule heat shield. And then we're going to go ahead and get a decoupler, the TD12 decoupler. And we're going to place that right there. Decouplers contain explosives that actually blow different parts of the rocket apart. So inside of there's a ring of explosives. And when you fire a charge from a computer to the rocket, it sends an electrical charge to the explosives here, and they go boom. And basically, you don't worry about flame or anything in space. So it doesn't look like an explosion. It just kind of goes poof because there's no oxygen to kind of catch on fire. So it just goes poof, and then the rocket kind of just separates. But that's a very powerful explosive in there. Just kind of some interesting little space tidbit. We're going to need some fuel tanks next. So we're going to turn this into a moon lander for this episode. So let's go ahead and grab a small fuel tank. Maybe not that small. Maybe something like that. You know, give us a little bit of wiggle room. If you're really good at the game, you might be able to get away with a moon landing with something like this. But where we're still learning, let's give ourselves a little extra room. So let's go with this. This was a bit overkill. So let's just go with this for now. Now let's head on over to engines because this is just our little lander stage. We want just a soft, gentle engine. So I'm going to go ahead and use the Terrier engine. These are a bit too long for this. You can't really, the landing legs don't extend down over it. Plus it kind of looks silly. So we'll go with the Terrier. Although this is a much more efficient engine. So that's going to be our little beginning lander stage, but we're going to need to add a couple things to that. The first thing that we're going to need to add is we're going to need to add an antenna. So let's go ahead and put one of those on top. That'll let us talk to Earth, which is pretty important. The next thing we're going to need is we're going to need to go over to electrical. And we're going to need to put solar panels on this because the controls in this rocket, like when you're going to turn in space, those are powered by electricity. So if you go up into space without a way to generate electricity, and I apologize if there's a cat in the background, he'll be running around in various parts of this. Seems he likes to always play with his little jingly ball when I start. But we'll need to put some solar panels on the side of this so we don't lose electrical steering in space. So let's go ahead and just whack 2 solar panels right on the side like that. And if we right-click them, they don't look like solar panels, but they are definitely solar panels. So these are the 1x6 photovoltaic panels. I struggle with that word, but those are what they look like fully extended. So let's go ahead and retract. So we've got our communications, we've got our parachute, and we've got a pair of solar panels that'll kind of keep the electricity going. If you had something like with lots of electricity, you would want to maybe stick a battery there. That'll just kind of help you harness a little bit of extra power, but we're not going to worry about that. Now we're going to go back down to utility, and we're going to need a ladder if you want to land and actually get out and walk on the moon. So let's go ahead and add a ladder. And what will happen on the moon is your Kerbals can jump right out onto the surface, crawl down the ladder, and sort of walk around on the moon, so it's kind of cool. All right, and the next thing we're going to do is we are going to add landing struts. And I always forget where the landing struts are. So I'm just going to do a search for them. And there they are. So, sorry, that's cheating a little bit. It might be a little more time consuming. I believe the search function works on the consoles as well. I noticed I did make a mistake there. I added 2 landers, so very quickly I'm just going to go ahead and delete all but the last section. Grab that and just fix the symmetry. And I want to make one note about, while I'm kind of fixing this little, let me see if I can, there's a way to copy and paste. Nope. There's a way to get that to copy, but I'm not going to mess with that right now. Notice while I'm kind of digging for the other ladder that I put these on in a triangle pattern. That's the most stable pattern because it gives you 3 points of contact, and you can actually flip back over if you make a mistake. So always try to build, especially when you're just learning how to land. Always try to build yourself with triangle shaped landers. Definitely the most forgiving in terms of landing. So I'm going to go down, and I'm going to go ahead and put additional ladder segments on my rocket. There we go. So now my Kerbin can climb out of the hatch, crawl down the ladder, walk around on the moon, plant the flag, crawl up the ladder, get back in, retract the landing legs, and blast back off. Ideally, sometimes we do get stuck, especially if we have a bad landing, but we won't worry about that for now. So this is going to be the top stage. So everywhere there's an engine and above is called the stage. In this case, we have a stage. I'm kind of noticing now one thing I'm actually going to do here. And this is a good thing to practice, is I'm going to move the fuel tank off of this. Notice that I moved everything when I did that. When I select the command pod, I select the whole rocket. So that's a really good building tip. I use that quite a bit. So anyways, I'm going to select the fuel tank, move the lower part of the rocket off. So the fuel tank, the 3 legs, the ladder and all that. I'm just going to take that to the side. And this is more of a safety thing, but we're just going to go ahead and add another decoupler. Right here. Oh, do I have one already? Oh, never mind. Never mind. It was so skinny. Oh my goodness. I even talked about the charges on the. Oh my goodness. That was a little blunder, but you know, these things happen. So anyway, so anything above 1 engine is called the stage. I'll get back on track. So anything above 1 engine is called the stage. So this would be our top stage, and now we're building the second stage. We're going to call this stage the orbital stage because this is the stage that's going to push us into orbit. I like to have a different stage for this, especially when you're learning, just because you get if you put a big long rocket in this second stage, you have lots of extra fuel to play with. So I highly recommend an orbital stage and then a payload stage. And a payload stage is whatever you're dropping off. And you can launch this naked like that, but I think those rockets are kind of ugly, for one, and for two, it's much better practice to get into the habit of going into payload, selecting a payload attachment, going like so, and going like so. Sorry, there was a little piece of dirt on my screen that made it look like one of the parts was sticking out. So always try to just cover whatever's on top with the sheathing. It's just better form. Makes your rocket fly much more efficiently. It's not catching the edges or anything like that. And you're left with a very nice kind of last stage. So always try to remember to put that sheathing on. So now I'm going to go ahead and move this stage up here. And below that, we're going to need fuel for our orbital stage. So I'm going to go into fuel tanks. I'm going to select a rather large fuel tank just because, like I said, we want to have extra room on this rocket because this is our beginner learner rocket. So we want to have that really long extra fuel tank because that'll kind of help push us around, guide us a little bit extra. So a rocket like this certainly is capable of sending this lander onto Mars. Probably not back because the lander wouldn't have sufficient fuel, but this would definitely land this rover on Mars. So we're overbuilding a little bit here, but that's to give you a little room for practice. So for the orbital stage, we don't need a very powerful engine. If we were going long distances, say this was going to Mars, I would attach this engine just because we would get way more fuel efficiency because inside of this engine, it's a nuclear engine. They don't exist yet. But the idea is that you would have an engine that has a nuclear reaction going on inside of it, and that nuclear reaction would generate sufficient fuel to push the rocket, and this would be a very fuel efficient process. But they don't exist yet, and we're not going to Mars, so we can get away with the Terrier. The Terrier offers you a little bit more thrust, it's a little more powerful, but it is a traditional engine, so it also has a nice lower profile. I like the way the Terrier looks, and it weighs significantly less. There are some benefits to the Terrier, but generally the nuclear engine is superior for an orbital stage or long-term spaceflight. But for now, we're going to use the Terrier. So this is a really solid Really, really solid, forgiving upper stage. So this is what I would recommend for an orbital stage and a payload stage. What you put inside of this doesn't matter. You can take this off, rebuild this, and then put your sheathing back on. So I like to reuse my ascent stages. So when I make rockets, what I'll do is I'll build the ascent stage. So I'll build an ascent stage. So I'll just practice with maybe a really big ascent stage. I'll build my ascent stage and then I'll save it. And then I'll just practice making different payloads, so different science experiments, different probes, and then I'll practice launching those around the solar system. That's how I like to play the game. But you may be different. You may like experimenting with the ascent stage. Certainly lots of room to play with whatever you really want. So this is our orbital stage. This is our payload. I'm going to go ahead and add a coupler below this. So right there. Notice it seals it nice and tight for us. And then I'm going to go to the adapter stage. And I'm going to grab an adapter. And I'm just going to place the adapter there. The adapter just lets us get a better fuel to size ratio. And then I'm going to grab a fuel tank that fits. So one thing about fuel tanks, that's way too big. One thing about fuel tanks is that's too small. Oh, I'm not organized by size. I always like to organize by size. It just makes everything a little easier to see. I think this one fits. So one thing about fuel tanks is you always want to use the fuel tank that is the longest, and not use chunks of smaller ones. And what do I mean by that? Like this and this are the same fuel tank. No. Where's the chunk for this one? This? No. Well, that's not a very good demo. So like this and this are the same size. That's what I'm saying. So this and this are the same size. So this is the same fuel tank. So you don't want to put like 4 of these together. You always want to go for the longest one. If you wanted to add extra fuel, you could put an extra one down here. So something like that would be perfectly okay. And we'll actually do that. I kind of like the way that looks. So we'll add a little extra fuel. Nothing hurts there. Because again, we're going to generate so much thrust with this rocket. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put a couple radial decouplers on. I recommend the far-reaching ones if you're learning, just because you're able to kind of place those parts a little easier. A lot of times the ones that lay right on the side are a bit more annoying to work with. Notice these are kind of crooked. Sometimes that does happen. You just got to play with the angle of the camera, and eventually they kind of snap into place. And if they're not super straight, it doesn't matter, because remember they're going to be level on either side anyway. So if these aren't oriented completely straight, it's fine. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some solid fuel boosters. So we'll probably use these for this one. These seem pretty appropriately sized. So just a couple solid fuel boosters. Actually, let's go a little bigger than that. Again, we're just kind of focused on safety. So let's go with these 2 long ones right here. It looks a bit silly. It's a big tall rocket with these very long tubes on the side, but these are a bit more fuel efficient, and they'll give you a little bit more of a safety net. So we always want to kind of overbuild. So we'll go with the bigger size solid fuel rockets. And now let's go to aerodynamics. So aerodynamics. And let's click aerodynamic nose cone, and let's snap 2 aerodynamic nose cones on this. So this is a completed rocket. Oh my goodness, no it is not. We forgot to put an engine on. I spoke too soon. That would have been a critical mistake. So when you're picking an ascent engine, you want to use a liquid fuel main ascent, because it's actually more efficient to burn liquid fuel on your way up and through the atmosphere. Solid fuel stops working basically once you get into the higher atmospheres, because there's no oxygen. So liquid fuel is called liquid fuel because it comes with liquid oxygen. So in space, we have to carry that oxygen with us. So we want to have that on our main stage, because as that oxygen level decreases as we go through the atmosphere, these will continually burn less and less efficiently. And we want to have that supported with a nice consistent source of fuel, just in case these burn super low. So we are going to put on a nice liquid fuel main stage. And when picking a liquid fuel main booster, you want to pick the one that has the highest thrust ASL, because that's the atmospheric thrust. And the thrust in a vacuum is the thrust in space. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the mainsail liquid fuel engine, and I'm going to place that right on the bottom of my rocket. So I have my mainsail liquid fuel engine, my 2 solid fuel booster rockets, 2 decouplers, and this looks excellent. One thing I do want to highlight with a rocket like this, the center of mass is going to be very low. And what does that mean for us? That means that if we go to take a turn really early, our entire rocket is going to flip. So when we go to launch, kind of have a launch strategy with a rocket like this, that I'm not going to turn until I drop these 2 big giant boosters. And the reason we're not going to turn until we drop these 2 giant boosters is because these 2 things are dragging down the center of mass, so it's too low. If our center of mass is in the center, we have a nice kind of center pivot point that we go around. If the center of mass is too low, then that pivot point's too low, and we act like a lever and we kind of sort of flip. So having a center of mass in the center of the object is ideal. And with air resistance, that'll actually drag us down. Now notice, like, if we go into space, there's no air resistance, so the center of mass becomes irrelevant because there's nothing to pull against your rocket as it flies. But while we're in the atmosphere, the center of mass matters, so do not turn the rocket at all, or a rocket like this will flip until you're outside of the atmosphere, at least while you're learning. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into structural. And I'm just going to grab some clamps, and I'm going to place those clamps on either side of my rocket like so. And then I'm just going to grab another set of clamps and kind of place them right here like so. They're not completely level, but again, it's not too important, although it does kind of look a little ugly. Oh well, nothing's perfect. They're just a little crooked. This booster seems to have some issues kind of centering things. So anyway, this is pretty good. So we're gonna go ahead and launch this vehicle. Actually, no, we're not. We are going to make sure that we stage correctly. So let's make sure that that our solid fuel boosters fire, our main booster fires. We're gonna break away from this. So we're just trying to make sure that all of our actions line up. So the main booster is gonna fire. The solid fuel boosters are gonna fire. We're gonna fly up for a little while. We're gonna drop those solid fuel boosters. Notice these are up here. These need to go down there. Come up here. This breaks away at the correct time. This fires at the correct time. We're going to reveal our probe, and then we're going to decouple from our probe, and then we're going to fire the probe engine, and then we're going to break off our probe on the inside, and then we're going to parachute. Notice there's a lot of steps. Just sort of play through this a couple times. I can do it really fast just because I have practice. I don't know how to. There we go. So I can do this quite efficiently. So that looks pretty good. If we want it to be really safe, we could add struts from here to here. I don't think we're going to run into any issues, but if this mission does fail in the first pass, it's because I did not add struts. So just keep that in mind. And what struts do is they basically will stabilize those solid fuel boosters right to that liquid fuel rocket. So just a little added security so the rockets don't fly off because of air resistance. Alrighty, so now I'm just going to go ahead and toggle SAS. And when I toggle SAS, that's just going to keep my rocket nice and straight because that's called the Stability Assist System. That's what SAS stands for. So let's go ahead and turn on Stability Assist. Let's go ahead and throttle our rocket to full throttle. I'm just going to do a quick double check here to make sure everything's going to fire correctly. I recommend launching during the day. So just especially for practice, there's certainly nothing wrong with firing up in the night. It kind of looks a little cool. So we're just going to time warp around until the sun comes up. So moving a little slow. Let's maybe go to 1,000 times speed. It's a little faster. I don't want to go too fast because I don't want to overshoot the days. There we go. We have some sun. So now I'm going to power up my rocket. I have my SAS toggled on, and I'm going to launch. No countdown. So notice those two solid fuel boosters are kind of wobbly a little bit. I would highly recommend putting struts on here. I'm just for the essence of time. I'm not going to do that. And struts are a bit more intermediate, so I certainly would show that in a more intermediate design tutorial. But just know that struts are pretty easy. So as I climb through the atmosphere, I'm going to encounter less air. So as I encounter less air, I basically just kind of want to turn down my thrusters because I'm pushing against less, and I don't actually need all this power all at once. If I can, the lower throttle, the more fuel efficient my engines are. So I'm just going to throttle down. I'm not moving at all. I'm just letting this sit. I haven't touched a single thing. So if you're on controller, I haven't moved the joystick, and on mouse on mouse and keyboard, I haven't touched anything to turn the rocket. I'm just letting this rocket go up nice and straight. Because remember, our center of mass is really low. So if we cross through. So now you'll see this red. This red is why we have a heat shield on the inside of our rocket. It's because this is the ozone layer, and it forms this very dense layer of ozone that is very, very violent to burn through at fast speeds. So now I'm going to break off these boosters, and I'm coming out of the atmosphere, so we're doing good timing. So I'm going to wait until I get right on this 90 here. I did spin a little bit, so hopefully that is the right orientation. But yep, so I'm just going to turn down that 90 right there. Just go right down until you pass the 90. Until you pass the 90 and line up right with the side. Now, you can only do this side motion when your apoapsis is higher than 75,000 meters. I'm kind of doing it just by intuition, just to save a little time. I've done plenty of orbits. But when you're coming up, we basically built an ascent stage that will pretty much automatically put us into an orbit. So now we just need to push in the sideways direction to kind of make it go circular. So I'm out of fuel in my main stage, so I'm just going to break that off. And I'm going to fire my orbital stage. So there's that little orbital stage coming out now. It kind of looks pretty. I always like staging. So notice I do have mine a hair down, sort of down in this area. And that's just because I want to kind of circularize. There is a maneuver node for this, and I will show you really quick. So I'm going to cut my engines. There's a better way to do this, and I'll show you how to do a maneuver node right now. So I'm going to click here. Let me actually make sure I turn my engines off first. I'm going to click on my apoapsis. I'm going to click Add Maneuver, and I'm just going to go prograde right until that second circle shows up. That's just a much faster way of putting you into orbit versus just kind of sitting here for forever and kind of always burning sideways. So this is a much better way of doing it. So all I did was I created a maneuver node here, and I pulled it kind of prograde. So that's how I did that. And now I'm just going to orient the rocket by clicking Maneuver. And there's a nice little play button here, so I'm just going to hit play. Notice when this node time counts down, that's the time until my burn, and this is the time that I need to burn. Notice this number is a little higher. If you throttle to engines to full, that's the time it takes. But if you notice, if I turn down the power to the engines, these numbers kind of start to equal out. So you want to kind of play with the engine throttle and make these numbers as close to each other as possible. And it's kind of like a little mini game. But the better you get at this, the more accurate your burns are in space. So just kind of keep that in mind. So I'm just going to try to level those two things out as close as possible. And if you don't get it perfect, but that's pretty good right there, about a second off. So just trying to play with the throttle until those numbers are the exact same. So the node time and the burn time. So as we get to this point, we need to have this much speed. So we're collecting this speed, and we need that speed in about a minute. So based on how much thrust we're generating, in about a minute we'll have this much speed, and we just need to wait a minute. So I wonder if I can't fast forward because I'm accelerating. So we are going to wait for 45 seconds. One of the main things with this game is you will spend lots of time waiting in maneuver nodes. And the way to make maneuver nodes is you select Add Maneuver. The only maneuver nodes we're going to really play with on the way to the moon are prograde and retrograde. These are kind of some circularizing tools that kind of spin your orbit around, and these kind of push your orbit up and down the triangles. But for now, we're just going to talk about prograde and retrograde, at least in this video tutorial. So notice I have an orbit, so I'm kind of good with an orbit, so I'm not actually going to finish this burn. Anything above 75,000 meters will keep you in orbit. So we certainly have a pretty good orbit, 216. So I'm good with that. Gonna cancel that maneuver node. I just tap that little X. I also made a little one for show there, so I'm just gonna cancel that as well. I want to show you how orbits work kind of in real time. So notice if I fast forward, slow, now I'm speeding up, and I'm falling fast, slow, falling fast. Now if I do this at 1,000 times, okay, that's too fast. So faster, faster, slower, 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 faster, 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 slower, 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 faster, 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 slower, slower, slower. So we're falling, 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 rising, 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 falling, 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 falling. So you're basically falling in the Earth around a circle. And if you have a circular orbit, you're at the same speed as you're falling and when you're going up. But if your orbit is in an ellipse, so a dragged out circle, your speed is never going to be even. So notice we're moving fast, 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 slow, 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 slow. So that's how orbits kind of work, and that's how orbits work in general. So kind of some interesting little thing there. But because of this property in rocket science, it's much more efficient to burn your engine at the point where you're already naturally moving the fastest, which in this case is going to be our periapsis. So one of the things that we're going to shoot for now is we're going to try to extend the apoapsis of our orbit so that it connects with the apoapsis of the Mun. And how we're going to do this, I'm just going to select where my little periapsis is. I'm just going to go ahead and hit Add Maneuver. and I'm just going to hit prograde and just push the edge of that out somewhere like that. Now, if something like this happens, that's awesome, because what that means is I basically hit the moon right away. If you don't hit the moon right away, just let that orbit sit for a while. So when these orbits intersect pretty closely like they are right now, that means that you are going to be in orbit. Note, the way to make this really easy is when you're going up in orbit, always try to line up the nav ball when you make that turn with that 90-degree line. That will set you up in this perfect circular orbit. If you are burning in a different direction when you go up, your orbit is going to be lopsided. You might come out sideways, and this method will take much longer. Make sure as you're coming up, you're following the ascent steps to a T. So anyway, so I got lucky with this one, and just because for the sake of time, I am just gonna hit the moon. So I'm okay with this. So I'm gonna go ahead and click maneuver, and we kind of got really lucky actually with that little time warp of the day. It actually put us in the perfect position at the perfect time to make the perfect moon capture. So this is actually the perfect moon mission. I've got it on my first try. So this is a very rare moment. So anyway, so I'm going to hit this little play button and fast forward right up to my maneuver node. I should try to time my tangents with maneuver nodes just to for time, because now I have nothing to say. And there's a 2-minute maneuver node. Woo! So again, I'm going to turn on my engines just ever so slightly until that node time and burn time line up. So just ever so slightly until that burn time and that node time sort of line up. Just trying to make them the same number. And sometimes you have to throttle back and forth. But eventually they'll sort of kind of click in. And it's sort of an art. And that's pretty much the exact same thing. Again, I'm just kind of going a little high, a little low, a little high, a little low. There's a little bit of skill involved in this game. Not too much, but a pretty skillful game. So as we come up, we're going to come up to our highest point in the orbit. So our speed here is going to be the lowest, this is really truly a perfect capture, because our speed here is going to be the lowest. And then we're going to just have very little fall time, and then we're going to hit the moon. So by the time we hit the moon, we're already going to be going very, very slow. I also want to show you the behavior of this line. So as we fall, the moon kind of catches us. We sort of whip around the orbit of the moon. So that super fast fall motion that we saw when I was doing that little spin on the Earth, we kind of do that here instantaneously. But we have so much kind of initial energy that we just kind of fly out. And notice, it's actually so powerful that it throws us out of orbit with the Earth. This is actually the perfect way, and how, like, say you were going to go to Mars. So this burn maneuver is so perfect. And let me just make sure that I get it absolutely correct. Oh no, I overshot. So to fix this, I'm just going to go retrograde and try to kill a little. I just want to be in that capture, because that capture window right there is amazing. So I'm just going to burn a little back. Oof. It's a very tight window, though. It's a little forward. Right along the... Here, let's just go prograde. Sorry, I'm a little troubleshoot. I really want to get this capture. Because it's such a nice... because the way it is just so beautiful. So let's see if I can get it on the first try. Oh, it doesn't look like... I catch it just quite. There are some fancier tools here, so if I show you that... whoa. That's not what I want. And that's not what I want. So I'm just clearing my maneuver nodes. Just going to start from scratch. I'm just going to see if I can catch it. So if I go here and I do this, and I pull it, let's see. Sorry, I seem to have blocked myself. All right, either way. So if you don't get a capture on the first time, leave your orbit like this. I'll give up on the first try. All I would have to do is add a maneuver node and slightly push it that way, but for just clarity, I'll leave it like this. So all you have to do is when you get this orbit, just like this, fast forward, basically, 1,000 times. Spin it around really fast, and notice eventually, if the orbits overlap, you eventually just kind of catch the moon. And that's the kind of quick and dirty way without calculating the position of the moon. You can just sort of kind of be there. And the moon will just kind of sort of pick you up. So just to have those two orbits overlap, and eventually you'll hit the moon. And that's just a really easy way to do it. So I'm just going to kind of wait. I'm falling towards the moon now. I don't want to get too close, so I am going to wait until this capture window. Because the moon is right here, I'm actually going to go ahead and just try to kill a little velocity. So to do that, I'm just going to burn retrograde, and that'll slow me down a little bit. So as I'm coming, the moon will be able to catch me a little easier. So let's do that now. So I don't want to overshoot, so I'm just trying to come in and just sort of catch the moon here. So I don't want to come flying around this corner too fast. I want the moon to pick me up into its orbit. So I'm just going to kill off a little speed, and this is by no means the most efficient way to do this. But I just want that little capture window to be nice and close. So it actually seems like we're having... Oh, no, I don't. I'm burning the wrong way. Oh, no. Haha. I actually need to go faster because I made a mistake. I'm coming into the right side of the moon. So I actually need to push this faster so I don't miss the moon this way. It's also perfectly fine to wait, too, because if you notice, I'm still orbiting the Earth, and the moon will come back. So we'll see if we can snag this. We are getting closer. This is a very inefficient capture, but we were fortunate enough to sort of be... It might be worthwhile when you have this elliptical orbit to save, but I'm just, for the sake of time, instead of, again, trying to do the fancy stuff, it seems to be that I cannot move. Am I incorrect here? There's no time warp? I'm not under acceleration, correct? I guess it doesn't want to let me move. Huh. Well, Huh. Wow, this might kill the video. Okay, well, I'm just going to kill all of my speed, and all of it, and I'm just going to sort of see what happens. So the moon should catch us, and okay. Well, this video is, because I did not quick save till the launch pad, correct? Oh, I quick saved from the... Anyways, so when you do that, eventually you'll get into a position where you're about to land on the moon. Okay? Well, so this video is going to skip a step because this is the moon landing I did prior to this. This wasn't a weird fancy edit. This was my quick save. It is much better to quick save often. So basically, once you get around the moon, you'll kind of come into an orbit, and you'll want to practice slowing yourself down. When you get to the surface, make sure that you save before you do this final burn stage. This will kind of help you on the descent. Actually, it's kind of nice that it skipped to this, because I made this video actually right before this, so both these videos are now washes. But the first time I made it, I did a beautiful video. It was awesome. I was super proud of it. I had this cool little lander. Notice I forgot a ladder on the first try, so we're not actually going to be able to get out and walk, which is kind of sad. But conveniently, I can still film the landing. Woo! So, yeah, you kind of are getting like two mishmash videos because that one I didn't press stream. So anyway, I'm going to crash into the moon. I'm going to crash in the moon. I was, yep. Talking too long. I have so much more respect for the guys who do these videos. Holy moly. The stuff they must get right on the first pass. And this stuff is time consuming. This is an hour. But moon landings are fun. I do this for fun, so I don't mind this one bit. So anyway, so because of that quick save, I just loaded my quick save, and now I'm just gonna try to do this kind of quickly because you know that the video is kind of a little bit messed up. It loses its novelty when it's not a full mission. So I'm just gonna start burning as I kind of approach the surface of the moon. Notice I'm a little late again, and that's just because I'm trying to rush it. I have tons of time to start that burn earlier. So let's say, notice it's a timing thing. So one of the things that I kind of want to make you aware of is you definitely want to be quick saving before this. Like, you can get trapped here. Like, say I'm moving 1,000 meters per second and I don't quick save, like it becomes physically impossible to stop. So make sure that you're quick saving often. It might even be worth your time to figure out how to do multiple saves and rename them in between trials. So do a save when you're in orbit. Do a save when you're do a save in orbit around Kerbin. Do a save, another save for when you're have that connecting orbit to the moon. Do another save when you're coming down to the surface. That's really the best way to do this. I'm being very cocky and I'm going too fast again because I'm talking. No. Oh my goodness. Am I gonna land this? I can burn still. Oh, I can save. No, I lost my engine. All right. Okay, I'm gonna focus on the landing this time, Sean, and just kind of guide you down. So, I am gonna be a little cocky again. Do it like this. Okay, now I'm gonna burn. Retrograde, always be burning retrograde at this stage. This is the only burn that you should be doing. I'm going to kill all of my velocity this time before I smash into the side of the moon. I hope. I think I overshot it again. Wait. Nope, we're good this time. We are good this time. We are good this time. And again, it's going to take you a lot longer to do this because I've done 1,000 of these. So I'm being lazy here. So basically, you want to kill your velocity somewhere close to the surface. Don't kill it too high for obvious reasons, because then you're just going to fall back and it's pointless. So the closer you do this to the surface, the better. And it's going to take some practice. And notice, eventually, you're going to start to get to a point where you start climbing again. As long as this is generally below like 20 meters per second or 40, 20 to 40 is generally an okay place to land. 40 might be a bit high. So just keep that in mind, that when you actually touch those little things, you want to have a velocity somewhere between 20 and 40. So notice I'm just playing it on the safe side just because of the amount of mistakes that were made on this landing attempt. So I want to wrap this video strange up because I'm mad that I failed to make 2 coherent videos. Stuff is hard. Okay. So I'm just feathering. Just feathering. And notice I'm going to take it off the maneuver node at some point here, because if I completely hold it retrograde, I'll start flipping. Because now my opposite, like the opposite direction is below me. So if I hold it retrograde, my rocket will do like a death spiral. So just keep that in mind. Again, just going to go with shift. Very soft. I slammed a little too hard, but anyways, that's a general gist. You can do it softer. Most definitely. No way, 360 moon landing. Oh, I could have hit the throttle there. Anyway, maybe for my actual video, I'll leave Jebediah here and make it from scratch and save him or something. My solar panels blew out. So if you want to extend those solar panels by the time you get here, I'll just keep that in mind. I totally forgot to talk about it. This video is a wreck. And you want to extend the antenna too. So, all right. I don't know. You can't really even get out because of the way the cockpit is. So the nice part about using 3 legs is, notice I just pick myself up. That's why I highly encourage the 3 legs. So the 3-leg rover design, it's much more optimal. And then if EVA, so he's gonna fall off this rocket because I'm done with this thing. Notice you can do like a little space walk. Okay, there's a way to let go. Space. Whee! Awesome. And then what you can do is in this little actions tab, so if I right click him, you can plant a little flag as the lander rolls away. Good job, team. Oh my god, it's coming to rest. Oh my god, and the flag. And the flag. Okay, Sean, I'm done. All right, I hope you enjoyed this little. It's like an hour long at this point. I'm kind of rambly, but there's lots of content in here. Holy moly, I'm done. I'm signing off. Oh.